This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming an old buddy of mine from the Brainwash Cafe days of stand-up comedy. I'm talking all the way back to 2006. I'm talking about Max Neal. Max was still in high school when I met him, and I was 23 at the time, and he was one of the cooler guys, I'll tell you, in the group of open micers that me and my friend Danny knew. And I've been wanting him on for a long time, and he's finally coming on today. He's a really cool guy. I want to find out if he ever still gets up and what he's doing now for work, now that he's in his 30s, which is such a frightening concept for me because I knew him when he was like 16, 17 years old, you know. And it's going to be a great conversation today. And I'm so excited. Next week, I finally get to book for Halloween October. And now, that friggin' strike is still going on, but I got a huge list of former actors and people who were like writers, directors, you know, also historians. I'm going to reach out to all of them to have them on the podcast because I can't have any current working actors on. And I have a huge list, so don't think that you're going to be unfulfilled for Halloween October, because you won't. I mean, you will be, because I'm going to have a lot of great people on, and we will all get through the strike together. And then when the strike is over, I'm going to be interviewing, you know, working actors with a vengeance. I have a huge list of people I wasn't able to reach out to the last few months, and it's going to be fucking extraordinary. So yeah, here is my interview with Max Neal.
What's going on?
What's up, Max Neal? How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. I'm doing good.
Oh, perfect. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good, you know.
Nice.
I just moved to Modesto back in June, and the weather's a slightly nicer change than Redding. You know, I was in Redding for 6 years, and it was fucking hot over there.
I was gonna say, yeah, I would not be able to live in Redding because it is just absurdly hot. I'm still in San Francisco, and I work in South City, so we're basically immune to all the weather. Like, it'll be 90 degrees everywhere else, but then San Francisco will be like, no, we're topping off at 68. That's about it.
Oh.
And even then, I'm still complaining like it's too hot. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, when it gets cold and rainy in South City, it gets cold and rainy, I'll tell you.
No, that's true. Yeah, in South City, like where I work, I'm on the Genentech campus.
Yeah.
It's like a wind funnel. Like, there's so much wind. It's hella windy. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
It is crazy. But here we are, and I'm so glad that you're finally doing this today. And I wanted to start by, you know, going all the way back to the Brainwash days. You know, me and my buddy Danny, we started going to the Brainwash in June of 2006. We were two young idiots.
No, yeah, I remember Danny for sure.
Yeah, we were two young idiots trying stand-up. And I remember meeting you. You were like, what, 16, 17 at the time?
Yeah, 06, I was like 17. I started when I was like 15, and then, I started going to the Brainwash probably around like 06, 07 when I was in like 11th, 12th grade. Wow. And yeah, I too was a young idiot trying to do stand-up. I remember you guys coming out there.
Yeah, I was 23, he was 21. You know, we had known each other since elementary school, and, you know, it was a crazy time, and especially in comedy, because comedy was in a weird place where like the biggest comics in the world were Carlos Mencia and Dane Cook, and like nobody knew where fucking Chappelle was because he disappeared, you know, at that time. So like we didn't know what the future of comedy was going to hold, and then here's all these guys at the Brainwash trying to figure out, you know.
Yeah. Oh, man, I remember back then, too. Yeah, it was like Mencia and Dane Cook and people in SF. It was a lot of the people that are, like, kind of big now were getting their starts. Did you ever go to the Canvas when that was a thing?
No, like, I always heard about it, but I never got to go.
Okay, yeah, it was on Tuesdays. Brainwash was on Thursdays, but yeah, the Canvas was also another one. But yeah, Brainwash back then. What you had like W. Kamau Bell going out there, Kevin Avery, Ali Wong was just starting out.
Yeah.
Kevin Kamia, fucking Stroy.
I
A
forgot
lot
about
of
Story.
people. Marcela Arguello, she's out there. That's another Modesto person for you. Like a lot of people that are blowing up now and are like big were getting started back in the Brainwash back then. That was a crazy time. Nico Santos, he was one of those guys back then. It was
Chris Garcia.
Chris Garcia, yup. There was so much talent in the Bay Area back then.
There was.
It was ridiculous. Frankie Quinones, he's blowing up. Yeah, there's so much talent back then, and we were just trying to figure out how to get stage time, occasionally how to get some from a chuckle fucker, and how to get some drink tickets. I remember I was too young for drink tickets, but they were available. And I remember when I turned 21, finally being able to take advantage of the dollar paps at Brainwash. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At that time I wasn't drinking, right? So I remember I got at least one of those drink tickets, but I never used it. I think I gave it to somebody. I remember there was this girl. She wasn't quite 21 yet. She was like 20, and she was always like mooching off of people, and I let her mooch off of me one night.
Oh shit, you getting canceled right now. That's it. This is the last episode. Yeah. Contributing to the delinquence of a minor. Yeah. Okay, man.
No, she was an adult, she wasn't.
No, yeah, I know. Just...
Yeah, but oh my god, so you started going there before we did.
Yeah, or probably around the same time, because I was doing just open mics, like usually just like the Canvas and occasionally the Twisted Biscuit down by the beach, back when that was going. And then it was probably around like 06, 07 that I started going to the Brainwash, just because it was like kind of far out. And I just, by that time, in 9th and 10th grade, I was trying to be a good student, but by 06, 07, I was just cutting class, skipping. So I was like, you know what, if I'm going to go to the Brainwash on a Thursday, I'm going to just sleep in on a Friday. So, yeah, it was around that time that I started going to the Brainwash and getting the sets in over there. Because Tony Sparks, he was... he would be at the Canvas sometime. He's like, oh, you got to come down to the Brainwash. You got to come down to the Brainwash. And my dad used to work down there in that area, and he would go to the Brainwash for lunch all the time. And actually, he got a chili named after him for a while.
Really?
It was Sean's Chili at the Brainwash. I never had it, but I remember you telling me the story. He was like, oh, yeah, you got to make some chili. You got to make some chili. So when they finally did, they named it Sean's Chili.
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember when we started going there, there was David Wiswell, Julian Vance, Nathan Jackson, John Brown.
Yeah, I remember them. Joe
Gorman, Kevin O'Shea, Sean Keane, and they were the group of guys that were cool and supportive,
Oh yeah, I remember. I don't know what happened to a lot of them. I know Dave's got his he's got his little show going on, the Chat Roulette.
Yes. But
yeah, I remember those guys. Those are like the group of people who are just like super chill.
Yeah, let's see. I know that Julian has like completely disappeared off the face of the earth. Nobody knows where he is, like literally.
Yeah, I think I found him on Instagram, but right a while back. But yeah, Julian Vance. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what happened to Nate Jackson either.
Like I was in touch with him like after I came back from my car crash, and he told me that he went back to doing improv somewhere, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, because David did that too when he went back to New York. Yeah, and then let's see, I heard that John Brown was still in San Francisco doing it. Joe Gorman went to New York. Kevin O'Shea was in L.A. for a while. I don't know if he still is. Sean Keane also was in L.A. for a while. I don't know if he still is. But yeah, all those guys were around, and there was a lot of comics there that were absolute dicks to me and Danny. I remember, right? But people like you, Rachel McDowell, and Candy Chirilla, you were one of the few genuinely nice people to me, at least. So.
Oh yeah, I remember Rachel McDowell. I don't remember her, but I remember Candy. Candy was a sweetheart. She was great.
She still is. She came on here a few months ago.
Oh, what? Nice, nice.
Yeah, because she quit doing stand-up for a long time, like almost a decade, but now she's back to doing it. And, she's under her married name now, and she's still the same old Candy. She hasn't changed.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'd love to get back on stage. It's probably, I gotta say, it's been got at least like 10 years since I've been on stage. Do you remember Juan Medina?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still hosting it, but he had the show in the Valencia room, and so there's random funny story. But it was a perfect podcast for because it might get me canceled. But so we went to the show. He just hit me up. I was like, "Oh yeah, come check it out." So I went with my coworkers. It was my one coworker, Alvaro, who I went to high school with, my boss, and his wife. So the four of us, we were up at the show, and then one of the comedians is doing crowd work, right? And it says like, they ask Alvaro, proud Nicaragüense, like very proud Nicoya, and they ask him, "Oh, are you a Filipino?" And then he's like, "Man, no, I ain't Filipino. Fuck Filipinos. I hate Filipinos." And he's like, "I mean, no, I don't," because we were talking about like hype beasts and stuff like that. And so he says that the entire audience just goes crazy, like, "Yo!" He's like, "Wait, no!" And like our boss is sitting right next to us. He's cool as fuck. He doesn't care. But we're just all looking at him like, "Damn, Alvaro." And so that whole night, every comedian was just getting on him about like Filipinos and stuff, and it was funny as shit. And it was like, damn. It really made me miss stand-up. I was like, fuck, I miss doing that. I miss just busting somebody out. Just like, even if you're having a bad set, you find one person to engage with. Might not be better for the audience, but it's better for you. You got a little something going on.
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You remember Jack Jukes?
The name sounds familiar, but I would have to see a face.
He was at least a year younger.
But yeah.
He was at least a year younger than you. He looked like Alfred E. Newman, and he would go up on stage, and he would do his Christopher Walken impression, which was dead on.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I found him on Facebook about a year ago or so, and I don't think he remembered me, and so he denied my request, and I don't think he read my message. It probably went to a spam folder. But he had a girlfriend named Lana. I was connected to her on Facebook for like a hot minute, even though she didn't remember me, and then she ended up unfriending me. I was like, damn it! I have great memories of hanging out with you guys, you know.
Wow, the name Lana sounds hella familiar. I feel like I remember his girlfriend probably more than I remember him.
That kind of heavy-set Russian girl.
Yeah, which is a terrible thing to say, but that you remember the girlfriend more than him, not that she's heavy-set. That's just
no. It's just that she was a plus-size girl, you know.
But no, I remember they were there. I remember them. They were hella cool. There's a lot of times like who did I run into, or I feel like I ran into somebody from the Brainwash, or like just the scene like a long time ago, and just like randomly saw them. Like I was, do you remember like a lot of the more like character-ish people, like Kenny the Clown, Sweet Gale, and I still be seeing Ant sometimes. I remember I was on a date once, and Kenny the Clown, I was like, we were just walking through Fisherman's Wharf or whatever. Kenny the Clown busted me. I was like, "Hey, it's Drake. Look at that." I'm like, "Oh, hell no, Kenny. I ain't seen you in 10 years. You gonna bust me out like this?" But no, it was fun. It like just randomly seeing people. Yeah. But yeah, Sweet Gale, I don't know what happened to her, but I will always remember Sweet Gale and her orange beanie. And the little stuff she would hand out. Yeah. I remember I brought that shit to high school and was like, "Hey, this comedian's gonna fucking make it."
Yeah,
but she didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, Kasim Bentley said that she was Howard Cosell one time.
Oh, yes. Oh, man. Kasim, I don't know why he hasn't blown up yet. Like, I feel like that man should be on TV because he was funny as shit. I remember one of the best times I had at the Brainwash, because he would do like the crowd work, bust everybody out, and I called him out one time for being a grown man with braces talking shit, and it was the funniest shit ever. Crowd went crazy. It was so fun.
It's funny. In the same year and a half, I saw Chris Garcia and then Ali Wong on WTF with Mark Maron. I really thought Kasim Bentley was going to be on his show next in the future because he was that damn good,
Kasim was funny as shit, man. I loved his stand up. He's still funny, but I haven't seen him in a hot minute.
Yeah.
But
Remember Shane Coon?
who?
Shane Coon.
Oh yeah.
He was this weird, subversive, creepy-looking dude who looked like he could have hung out with Andy Warhol and his crew.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just come up with the most disturbing jokes that just made me laugh out loud. So, there's one I'll never forget where he was talking about gurgling and like, you know, watching the bubbles, just explode out of your mouth and stuff, right? And Grandma's like, Shane, what are you doing up there? And he's like, I'm gurgling and jerking off, Grandma.
Oh yes, I remember that. I remember that joke. Do you remember Dave Medea?
Oh, Dave Medina? Yeah, I'm connected with him on
Dave
Facebook.
Medina, yeah. Oh man, I haven't seen that guy in a long time, but I remember he was around my age too, and
Yeah.
we would go out and drink. We would get like tall cans and whatnot and just hang out and drink like outside of like comedy and stuff like that. That was one of the dudes that I kicked it with quite a lot, like outside of just like doing shows and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Were you around when Luke Lockfeld was around?
I may have been.
He was younger than me. He was. It might have been later on, but yeah, he was younger than me. And there was I remember one of his friends, John Serrano. These kids were great, but they were like some little troublemaking kids. I was like, damn, they remind me of me when I was like their age. Yeah. But yeah, they were some fucking fun kids. Yeah, and then they ended up hanging with like the whole Sylvan crew and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Were you around when like Andrew Holmgren, Justin Gomes, David Borey, like
that was
the Sylvan folk?
I think that was after me because I stopped going there in January of 2009. I was going through this weird point in my life because I had been working as a bouncer in a bar for a couple of years, and it got to a point where getting laid was more fun than doing comedy. So I stopped doing comedy for a year and a half until I lost my job at that particular bar. Right, but like. I stopped going, and it also got to a point too where people that I really liked stopped going there and started moving on to other things, and then there would be people there just telling the same jokes over and over again, and it just got tiring after a while.
No, yeah, that happened to me kind of when I took like I would be on and off. I was never like super serious. Like I wanted to pursue it, but like honestly I never had like I was young, I didn't really have any skills, so it was like I guess I just didn't have the balls to just like drop everything and like go to LA or go to New York and pursue it full time. So I was like, I'll just do it partially, but like I would take long breaks because I got a job where I was working nights, and then when I came back to do it again, it was like all new faces, like brand new. Everybody's was like, damn, I don't know nobody here. And that kind of took away from it a little bit. Like the community we had back those couple years, like just that group of people, like it was a good group of people, just like funny and just like good people who were just a joy to be around. Not saying that the other people weren't. I just didn't know them like that, and I just was a little introverted. These are new comedians. I'm not gonna get to know them that well.
It was a time that I would never trade for anything. I made some attempts to go back shortly before I moved after my accident and everything, but at the end of the day, I was just like, no, that time, 06 to 09, that was the peak. I don't want to try to relive that. So I just stayed away. In 2010, I started going to open mics in San Jose and Sunnyvale and San Mateo, where I'm from, because during the Brainwash days, there had been some attempts to have open mics in San Mateo. Jeff Applebaum and John DeCoven made some attempts, but it wasn't successful. And then suddenly, by 2011, there was open mics all over San Mateo, and so I started going to those. And I'll tell you, it became a lot more competitive. The male comics were a lot more alpha and ghetto than before, and there was a lot more backstabbing than there had ever been. And so it was not a good atmosphere, But I got up all the time and I enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't really do too much outside the city because I didn't have a car, so I was pretty much just like, yeah, anywhere in the city, I'll go. Outside of the city, we'll see. But yeah, I remember doing a few other shows like Purple Onion, stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Those were always fun. But like, yeah, I just got like, I was terrible at promoting myself. That was like what I was just super shit at. I would just like do the little, what is it? What were they? The, where you would just sell the tickets and, get your money that way. I would barely, make it with that, but I would go up there and have a good ass time. So that was really all that mattered to me. But yeah, I would love to like just hit an open mic again, just one time. I gotta do it. I'm planning on it, but now I'm like, I like to refer to myself as like I'm a civilian now. I work.
I got to do.
It's a pain in the ass, but yeah.
Yeah, I got to do the Purple Onion in 2015 when the name was already changed and everything, and it was a nice little venue. You know, I offended a great deal of people. I'll tell you, it was
Oh, nice, nice.
it was great. Yeah, I remember. Oh my God, you remember Joe Gleckler?
Yes,
He
yes, I remember Joe Gleckler.
he he
Yes.
he booked me and Danny for our very first showcase back in 2007. It was at our little theater in the Tenderloin.
Oh, yes, I remember our little theater. I remember Alma.
It was yeah.
She'd be like, "Wash your mouth. You need to wash your mouth."
It was like a little crack house, our little theater.
Oh yeah, no, it was tiny. It was tiny. And do you remember who was it? It was Mike Martinez had
Yeah.
like his little comedy spot like very, very close to it too.
Hmm.
I remember he had that one joke. It was, oh my God, I don't want to diss anybody, but that joke was just fucking wild as shit. Because it was like something was like there was like an Asian waitress and he was like, and she spoke Asian. I was like, what the fuck is that? But his delivery, it was just, you had to smile because he was just so into it. And I was like, that it's a hack joke. You have to laugh. Like, you
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to.
He took chances. That guy. Yeah. Um, yeah. So like we do our little theater. There's two people there, a Canadian couple on their second honeymoon, and it's me, Danny, Joe Gorman, Kevin O'Shea, Sean Keane, maybe a couple other people, and we're just performing in front of this Canadian couple, and you know I know Canadians, you can't offend them. They got the most dirty sense of humor of anybody on the planet. It was a lot of fun, but it was really awkward. I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into at that time? You know?
hmm Those shows in front of nobody were fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I would kind of feed off of it because, like, okay, I have to make 100% of this crowd laugh because there's only one person. And it would be so awkward. Like, it would be fun, but, like, you really have to be able to just kind of, like, deal with the awkward silence. And it's like, oh, yeah, you don't necessarily get my humor. Like, you'll be a show, like, I'll be on it, and you'll be next. And we have similar senses of humor, but very different sets. Like, our comedy is, like, very different. And it's like, you either gotta like comedy, or you're gonna have some specific people that you're just not gonna find funny. And I can imagine being, like, one of the only people at a comedy show. I never really thought of that.
Mhm.
When I was on the other end performing in front of one person, but
Right.
imagine being at a comedy show and being the only person in the audience. That would be
Yeah.
something interesting.
It was crazy, and it's funny, you know. At Brainwash, signups were at 6. The show started at 7, and you never knew what was going to happen. You know, there was
No, yeah, you would get bumped. You'd be like number 8 on the spot, but
Yeah.
then you'd get up like
number 15.
15 just because some random people would be in town. I remember at the Canvas one time. This is when I first got started. I was probably like 15. Jerry Goldstone was hosting, and I was supposed to go up, but then Dat Fan, this is like sort of after he just won Last Comic Standing, that first season.
Mhm.
He was there, and he bumped me. I was like, Jerry, you gonna bump me for a person who been on TV and then made me go after? He's like, oh, you got it, you got it.
Yeah.
But I was like, that was the first time I got bumped. And I was by like one of the bigger names. I was like, okay. this is it. So I was like, yeah, you get immune to it after a while, but yeah, if you don't get that like that lineup, you're there you're at the Brainwash till like 11 at night, performing in front of like 3 homeless people and the staff.
Yeah,
but it was fun.
The first night me and Danny ever went there, we were the last 2 comics of the night, and all there's left there was 2 women of color. That was it. And Tony. That was it. And I went up. I did some jokes that Bob Zaney told back in the 90s that were hella funny, and they laughed at those. And then I went on a rant about Tom Cruise marrying Katie Holmes at that time, about how I disapproved of it and all of that stuff. And I remember one of the girls was like, "Wow, this sounds personal."
Hey, and when you look back on history, you had the right opinion.
Yeah.
You weren't wrong.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. With everything that's going on with Scientology now, I think we're going to be learning a lot more about it once everyone has lack of fear over fair gaming and stuff.
Yeah, that was, that was like the jumping on the couch era, too.
Mm-hmm.
On Oprah, yes. That was peak Tom Cruise being insane.
Exactly. Exactly.
Those were good times. But then again, he wasn't like... When you think of people being crazy now, like celebrities being crazy now, Tom Cruise wasn't really that bad back then. I mean, yeah, he was a Scientologist, so like all the bad shit was there, but we didn't know about it.
Right.
But it's not like Kanye West or like fucking...
R. Kelly.
Yeah, like R. Kelly, or even like, what's his name from 2.5 Men with the tiger blood, Charlie Sheen. Like, that level of crazy, that's like some new shit, and it's fully acceptable too nowadays. Kind of like I was watching or in work. I work in a warehouse now, which is, I gotta say, the last bastion of having kind of like a fun job. Luckily, I work with a bunch of people that I've known for a long time. Like, I work with my friends from high school, from elementary school. Had some bad apples, but I brought them in. That was my fault. But like, so we'll just be like watching random shit. Like at lunch, one of my coworkers, he'll play an episode of King of the Hill, and we'll have that going on in the background, and we'll just play random clips, and just people know it's like, hey, if you're gonna go in the warehouse, knock first, because Max or somebody might be saying some inappropriate shit.
Yeah.
But can't do anything because you need the warehouse. But we were watching the old Dave Chappelle Howard Dean skit, or remember when he did the Pia! And then it cost him the whole election?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That was, so we were just like, we were watching that, I was like, Pia! And we just kept making that noise all through the fucking warehouse and all through the building, and like once somebody poked him, like, did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
What's that noise? They were like, oh, I have no idea. But like, when you look back at like that, and then you see like Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell and all of that, it's like, yo, he was not that crazy. He just got enthusiastic. Like now, you can be just full on fucking crazy, and people like, that's personality right there. Like it's kind of crazy, like how craziness has become a little more, or I don't want to say craziness, but eccentricity, I guess, is the word.
Yeah.
Eccentricity. Like, yeah, if you're eccentric, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, there's excuses for everything now. It's just this is the weirdest era I've ever lived through, and I just turned 40. You know.
Oh man, I'm gonna be 35 this year. We're getting old, Tommy.
We are getting old. It's a crazy time, man. I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been reading up on, like, you know, our history and stuff of the world and everything. I've been reading some about Sigmund Freud and his nephew Edward Bernays. And his nephew Edward Bernays, you know, invented public relations, and that's why politicians have won elections, and that's why we're drinking Coca-Cola and all the stuff that we can't have. You know, it's so scary how he used his uncle's psychology tactics to tap into the minds of consumers.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary.
Yes, we are all very, very brainwashed. Like, it's really sad. Like, yeah, right. Jesus Christ. Yeah, like, we're the theme of the day. But no, like, I think about it all the time, and it's like, yo, we are just like in society, we're starting to realize that we are brainwashed and the shit's not the way it should be, and that we're all just kind of like being controlled, but we're all like in that sense of like, oh, but it's still kind of working out for me, so you're not gonna do anything. But yeah, it is crazy. Like I'm reading about a lot of shit too. I feel bad. It's like if I'd been as interested in knowledge when I was in school as I am since I graduated and have been out of school forever and working a job that none of this knowledge is going to do anything for. It's like, damn, if only I'd have started giving a shit earlier, probably have a higher paying job.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never done so much crying than I have in the last 3 years when COVID hit. You know, it's just like humanity is just kicking us in the testicles is what it's doing.
Mm-hmm. You think about like, oh, what's going to happen when the overpopulation sets and when resources come out? It's like, hey, there's always going to be enough resources for 1% of the population. If you think about it, like people talk about like it's very hard for me to find like a significant other. I will say because I do not want children, and I was like, I'm 35 years old. The chances are I'm gonna end up being a stepdaddy or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, yo, I don't want to bring a kid into this world for what, another like 10, 15 years? What? I very much see the world coming to an end sooner than later. Like, it's like I feel like I probably should have had my midlife crisis like 15 years ago because I don't know if the world is gonna last another 35.
I think the world is going to remain. It's just we're waiting for the person who says, "Okay, had enough," with the global warming and all the capitalism and all that shit. Yeah, I have a feeling that someone's going to come out of the woodwork, okay, and said, "Okay, had enough. Okay, let's go back to the way things used to be." But at this point, I don't see it happening, especially with that strike going on in Hollywood. I want the actors and the people I interview on this podcast to be compensated when they do movies and TV and stuff, right? But at the same time, it's like, how can they win this fight? Because fascism rules the game, and all these corporations, they're playing for keeps now.
No, yeah, it's pretty fucked up because like I follow a lot of like anti-capitalist, a lot of like green leftist stuff, and it's like it's a very tough conversation to have. But it's like, it doesn't sound really bad, but it's like, do you know how many people have to die for us to get the world that we want? Like, not even like there to have said revolution, motherfuckers gotta die, which is fucked up. It's like, do you remember the memes about the race war, where it's like the really sad look when it's like, oh, when I gotta kill Tony Hawk, I'm gonna feel hella bad and whatnot. Like, that's kind of how it is, but it's gonna be like not black versus white. It's gonna be like poor versus rich. Like, I'm gonna feel hella bad if I gotta fucking murk Chris Rock or some shit like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, man. It's for the class struggle.
It's a scary time, man. It really is. Speaking, I got something funny to tell you. Speaking of crazy people, do you remember Lee Stoneman?
Oh yes, I do remember Lee Stoneman. I was in a movie with Lee Stoneman. I helped him out with the producer.
Oh, we all did. We
I remember you, Sergio. Who was it? Corey Largent was in it. Vladimir was in it. Yup. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I remember first time I saw Vladimir do stand-up, right? Or I saw him on Last Comic Standing. Yeah. I was like, yo, this kid's funny. So when I went to the Canvas, that was the first time I saw him in person. I'm like, yo, this is a kid from fucking Last Comic Standing. He's funny. But I was high as shit. Because around the same time I started doing stand-up was around the same time I started smoking weed. Yeah. So I'll go to the Canvas high as shit. Little 16-year-old fucking smoking like half a joint, just like high out of my mind. And he had this one joke where he was working in Safeway, and he was like, yeah, I work at Safeway, and people come up to me just looking stupid, and they're like, hey, Valdemir. And it was just, for some reason, the way he said, hey, Valdemir, it was the funniest shit.
Yeah,
and, it's like 20 years now, I still think about that sometimes and fucking crack up.
Yeah. So, oh my God. So what happened? You probably don't remember this, but he and another comic who was actually mentioned earlier, we won't say the name again, just for the privacy of this person. They they, they had a public falling out on MySpace, a huge one.
Oh yes,
I
I
thought
remember.
I thought it was a joke. I thought they were just fucking around and stuff, right?
It was a bit, right?
I thought it was a bit. Well, the other person told me later that they started hanging out. He got a little too creepy, and they stopped hanging out, and that's what that whole feud was all about. But I found him on Twitter in 2018, and I had him come on the podcast twice.
Oh, what?
The first time should have been the only time. Okay,
Oh
because
man.
we talked over 100 minutes, and I was playing devil's advocate because some people say shit and other people don't, but like I had him address the whole situation, and of course he wouldn't own up to it, and all that shit, and but
Mm-hmm.
we had a good talk. Then a few months later, I had him come on to do this Halloween talk, and he was a completely different person the second time, and he went on this borderline crazy person rant about how he hates Halloween and that Halloween needs to die and shit. And I was like, I'm not having him on again. And then
I feel like I can imagine that.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I can see it. I can see it for sure.
Because I just remember him making us laugh off stage. On stage, he wasn't that good, but off stage, he was.
There were a lot of people who like. I remember, there were a lot of people who were funny off stage, but just couldn't come because stand like no matter how loose your set is, no matter how much flow it seems or how much off top of the head, there is a lot of writing involved, and there is the formula of it. Like there is the setup and the punch. Like even the loosest sets follow that formula, but some people they couldn't get it. Like it took me a while to get it too. Like there was a lot of times I would walk over my punchlines and stuff like that. But yeah, there were a lot of people who were funny as hell off stage, but on stage they just couldn't. It just didn't work. I remember Lee Stoneman had a really cute dog though.
Yes, and yeah, and then I made an attempt to do my own streaming pilot with a bunch of friends, and I asked him to be the cameraman, and he got really weird with me, and at first was on board, and then he wasn't, and then I just completely stopped talking to him, and then he blocked me on all social media and shit. So that's fine. I don't need that shit. But I just remember like he was one of the guys at the Brainwash that was hella funny, and the guy was really resourceful too. Like he was on the game show Passwords, and it's on YouTube. And
oh, was he?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow! No, yeah, because I remember he had his shit together when he was doing the movie and whatnot. He had like his spaces, he had his locations and whatnot. So it seemed like he was at the time I was a kid. I was like, it seemed like he had his shit together. Or not a kid, I was a young adult, right. 18, 19. But I was like, this guy seems like he's got his shit together. Are you still writing?
I still write, jokes here and there and stuff, but I haven't been up on stage in 5 years almost.
No, but weren't you working on like a movie or something? Or
I do write screenplays, yes, and
nice.
Right now, I'm trying to put together my own memoir. I've been working on that on and off for almost 3 years now, and I need to get back to it. But there's been a lot of confusion, and there's lack of peace and quiet, and plus I do the podcast so much that I just really need to like make some time to focus to do it. But yes,
no, yeah, writing is tough. Right. Like me and my friend were working on a comic book. Like I wanted to write comics for a long time, but we were at this one thing in the city. This local artist was coming up with like a graphic novel about like just the city and whatnot and the mission and whatever. So we went out to the thing because my friend had a little crush on her. So like, oh yeah, let's support. And like I've never seen it, I don't know. So I'm like, hey, it's comic books, I'm down, let's go. So we sign up, we go to the thing and we're looking at it and we're like, oh yeah, the art is really good, but it's like I don't see a story here. And so he's trying to get his in, so he's trying to go talk to the artist or whatnot, and he sees her all cuddled up with her boyfriend and whatnot. He's like, Man, I could write a better story. I was like, hey man, don't get me started. Let's try. So we came up with this, like, we just sat around, got fucked up, and came up with this, like, story about, like, a former Sandinista and his kids and whatnot, about, like, the Nicaraguan Revolution.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh shit. I was like, I actually I can get into this. So I just been doing the writing. Like, I started a first draft, but then I was looking at it and I was like, because I started from the perspective of the youngest son. And I was like, yo, I'm too fucking old. I can't, like, I don't know what it's like to be like a 15-year-old anymore. Like, aside from trying to get some pussy, I have no idea what this character would want.
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea what this character would want aside from getting laid. And that, well, that could be in the story. It's not the crux of the character arc.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, fuck. So I had to redo it from, like, the dad's point of view, which is a little easier. But, yeah, writing is hard because, like, yeah, I work a lot, and it's like I don't have peace and quiet when I get home. So I'm thinking about, like, I don't know, signing up for that mechanics library or in the city is like, it was like $120 a year or something. But then there's like a quiet space that you could like work at. But yeah, like peace and quiet, that is very hard to come by. I'm looking for an apartment in the city, and it is fucking expensive. Just because.
Have you tried South City?
Quiet.
Did you work there?
Yeah, there's not that much in South City either. Like, for it's sort of around the same price. And if I'm gonna be paying that much, I'd rather be in the city where like everything is like where I know everything and everything's like somewhat close because I still don't have a car. So yeah, that's it. But yeah, South City is nice. Like, I work in South SF, and the weather here is pretty nice when it is nice. But there's just not that much around here.
Yeah, I worked at a bar in South City the last couple of years that I was drinking leading up to my accident. It's called the Standby. You ever been there?
Oh my god, yes, it is. It is very, very close to my job. I have a funny story about my coworker at the Standby.
Okay.
Apparently, the Standby has a very, very, very sweet and friendly, like, local. The locals that go in there, they're very caring because it was somebody's. It was somebody's last day, right? And we work at a biotech, so like when somebody, and this was years ago, before COVID and everything. So like in somebody's last day, we'd all go out, get drinks. It'd be on like one of the higher ups. They'd put it on their tab or whatnot. And this was back when it was like we were a startup or just gone public or something like that. So this person's last day, we were having drinks at the Standby because it was pretty close. And so my friend, my coworker, the dude who's leaving, he's like, hey, I'm going to challenge you. We're going to go shot for shot, right? Because he's a big drinker. It's like he's a big drinker. So like if you can outdrink him, you're gold. You are set. So they start drinking, and then my friend's like, hey, man, Joey keeps wanting to get the cheap shit, man. Let's do this. Who's paying for this? Patrick? All right, come on. Patrick. Joey wants to get the cheap shit, man. Tell him we can get, like, some Blue Label and stuff like that. Joey's like, oh, no, man, don't worry. He's like, Patrick's like, oh, yeah, go for it. Get the good stuff. We're not cheaping out here. So they're going shot for shot. And so our boss comes to, like, I got to ride out with him. And so our boss comes to get my friend. And you know how they have, like, the little half door? So he's like, all right, come on. This is the ride home. If you don't come now, you're going to have to get home on your own. And so he's just like, but he challenged me. And so you just see us and my boss walking away, and then him just, like, staying there. And so I get a call the next morning, like, hey, Max, it was nice working with you. Thanks for giving me the job, but I'm pretty sure I'm fired. I have no idea how I got home last night. I was drinking with Joey and Patrick, and I have no idea how I got home. And so I was like, what the fuck? And so, like, we're there. We're at work, and so we talked to Patrick, like, the C-suite guy who paid for it. He's like, so we're like, so what happened yesterday? And he just looks at my friend. He's like, you won? He's like, what? He's like, yeah, you won. Joey couldn't take it. He left early. And so I guess my friend tried to order like an Uber limo to take himself home, and the other people at the bar like set him up with like a regular Uber to get home without it being a limousine and costing him like hundreds of dollars. But yeah, he was like, yeah, the locals at the standby, they took care of me. They made sure I got home nice, and I was blacked out. I have no idea. So we were just like, who the hell got him home? But it turned out it was the locals.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so yeah, I'll always give props to the standby for that. All right, y'all cool. Y'all cool in my book.
I was there almost 2 years, and it wasn't as fun as the first bar I worked in, because the first bar I got laid a lot, but the second bar, it was much more...
standby, yeah, that's not gonna,
yeah.
That is a very different vibe. That's not, yeah.
It was much more professional, and I met a lot of dipshits there, and I'm not in touch with anybody from that place, because it just wasn't, it wasn't that kind of a place. Yeah, but I had fun there overall, even though there were some nights where I was just like, oh God, what am I doing here? I'm just doing it for the money after a while. But it was fun. I had some good experiences there.
Nice. I can imagine being a bouncer would kind of suck, though. Like, I was talking to somebody, and they were like, yeah, like, you're kind of like, if you got a problem with one person, they're holding up the line, and then everybody's got the line, and then, like, yeah, it's like, that is something that I would not want to do. Like, give props for that, because I would not want to be the person who's like, hey, I'm not going to let you in because you have, like, a passport or something like that. Like, I just feel like everybody would be starting problems with me. They're like, oh, yeah. But then again, I'm not bouncer sized, so people would try to give me shit. You gotta be big. You gotta be big to be a bouncer.
No, you could be little or small to be a bouncer, but just know how to take care of yourself. Like, I had partners at the first place I worked at who were like short, but they knew kung fu and all that shit. So it wasn't. Yeah, so it wasn't anything that was a problem or anything. But yeah, if it's too busy, it can be stressful. But if it's dead, it can be fucking boring. But if it's just right, good-sized people, everyone's respecting you, nobody's causing trouble, it can be a lot of fun, And sometimes you have a little leeway to like go join and sing a karaoke song or something, or just mingle with the people and stuff. It was fun,
That's cool. Have you ever had to like carry anybody out just because they were like too drunk or too obnoxious or whatever? Like physically like pick somebody up and carry them?
I had that. I had to wrestle a couple people to the ground. I had a lot of screaming matches with people who just were irrational, and I had to get backup for it and stuff, But yeah, I mean, I wrestled somebody to the ground, and like I would cut up or actually scrape up my hand pretty badly because I'm just trying to keep the guy down until my backup comes, Yeah.
That's crazy. Because yeah, that's like when you hear bouncer, like that's like the action that you think about. I was like, oh shit, we got a drunk person at table for you. I go pick them up, and I just imagine you picking them up over your shoulder. There's some drunk women kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
That's just what I see in my head.
Only if they touch you first, because you touch them first, they can sue you. So
yeah,
I'm gonna write a whole book about that. Like I'm not gonna put any of those stories in this memoir I'm writing. I gotta put that in the.
Oh, I was gonna say that would be good for the memoir. Bouncing days.
Yeah, for the separate book, because I could write a whole book about that. But
that would be dope. That would be dope. Confessions of a Bouncer.
Did you ever try? Did you ever try to host an open mic?
I did host the Brainwash a couple times when Tony was out. He asked me, he was like, hey, would you be interested in hosting sometimes? And I did it a few times. I never really got like the hang of hosting. When I was in high school in 11th grade, I hosted a talent show. And I was going to have like Julian Vance, Stroy, Dave Wiswell, and Edwin Lee perform. Mm-hmm. But my school, they kept changing the dates. So Julian, Stroy, and Edwin, they all had to, or Julian, Stroy, and Dave, they all had to work. So yeah. Edwin came out, Edwin Lee. he came out and he fucking killed it. Which it was like, cause everyone's a little Asian dude, and I went to Mission High, and it was just like, so this was like '06, like, so it was like peak, like, kind of hood mission days. Like, this was when a student was getting killed like every year, outside of school, of course. But so yeah, he goes in there, and I remember so we had a lot of like big black girls at the school. So he had the one joke that destroyed. He was like, yeah, if I had to choose between a skinny girl and a big girl, I would choose the big girl, because the big girl knows where the food is. And then the crowd just went wild. I was like, okay. And because I told my not coworkers, like the principal, the people at the school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bring in some professional comedians for the talent show, and they're like, all right, just don't get me fired, just don't let them get me fired. I was like, oh, okay, if anybody gets you fired, it'll be me, with what I say. But yeah, I kind of sucked at hosting that, but the show went over pretty well, because it was tough, because I couldn't be 100% like my vulgar self at school, at a school performance. Right. And I still don't think I would be able to do clean comedy. I know I could do less cussing, even though I'm not really good at that in general. Like at work, I still cuss a lot. Like, luckily, I'm one of the few black people here, so they can't really get on me about saying the N-word. But yeah, I'll be in the warehouse, N's, F's, and B's dropping all the time, and people, they're just used to it. They're just like, oh shit. Like, so if I'm just like, I'll be in a meeting, I'll be like, and the freaking thing. But yeah, but in high school, there was no way I'd be able to like perform without cussing, or without doing any kind of like sexual innuendos or any sort of like racial material. Yeah, it was just it was impossible for me. It was impossible.
I hosted an open mic in 2013 for 4 nights overall. We did it like every other Thursday at this bar in San Mateo called Steamy's. And the first night was so freaking busy, because I got the okay in November, and then by February I had promoted it so much that we had a big first night. And I asked Justin Scales to headline, but he said $50.
Oh, Scales, man!
I asked him to headline. He said $50. I was like, "Fuck you," you know. So Jeff Applebaum
got that kind of money here.
Yeah, so Jeff Applebaum headlined, and I was so happy that he did that. He didn't have to do that, but he's always been a good friend to me, and so he did it. Kevin Monroe came out shortly before he moved to L.A., and
oh yeah, Kevin Monroe, he was a good guy.
He is a good guy, and he was really funny that night. And there was a bunch of guys coming in that had never done stand-up before and are still doing it today. There's this one guy called Mean Dave who's still doing
I know Mean Dave. I remember Mean Dave. Him and Nina wrote the or no, that was Charles and her, but him and Nina wrote like a kid's book or something. But yeah, no, Mean Dave, another person who is extremely nice. He's not mean at all.
Yeah, not off stage. But yeah.
Nah, Mean Dave was a great dude.
But yeah, but then the other 3 nights that I hosted, like no one was coming in, and there were these like tailgating Giants fans coming in and starting shit. So I just pulled the plug on it. But I'm proud that I actually got people in that first night and stuff.
No, yeah, that's tough to get people to show up. Like that's probably the hardest thing about stand-up. Like once you just get over like getting on stage and telling jokes, like getting people to show up is very, very hard. Because everybody will want to be like, oh yeah, when's your next show? When's your next show? It's like, oh, it's this time. And if you can't make that, when I have a show after that or the week after, it's like, ooh, my schedule's booked. It's like, why are you even asking?
Yeah, I mean, Meredith Godfrey, she bartends and hosts open mic at the Hearth, in San Francisco, and she can get people in because they know her. She bartends there, and she's a hot older woman, and yeah, I mean it takes a lot to host an open mic, and it could just be a real big hassle. But
especially when there's sports going on too. You brought up the Giants tailgaters and stuff like that. Yeah. Sports is just the worst thing for stand-up. Like,
Yeah.
it is... I love sports, but, like, it is so hard to do open mic at a bar when there's a Giants or a Niner game going on. Like, it is impossible. I remember, this was probably, like, 2013, like between 2010 and 2013, we were doing this open mic. I don't know who started it, but it was like the first and last open mic at this Irish pub near it was in the Richmond district in the city. It was near like on Geary. And we were doing our jokes, but then I think most of the audience did not know that there was a comedy show going on, and they would not have shown up if they knew that a comedy show was going on. So it was getting super abrasive, and we were like, oh shit, we might end up getting jumped after this, because I think some soccer game was going on too. So yeah, it was really bad planning, but it was fun. It was fun doing the show, thinking at any minute we might get our asses kicked.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, like, did you go to college after high school?
I went to City College for a little bit, but I did not take it serious at all. I went to City basically just to hang out and smoke weed at Bat Mall Hall.
Yeah.
I went to I took what was it? I took a psychology class my first semester. Got a B in that. I took like a sociology class. I gave myself like a full schedule, but I really only stuck with 2 classes because I liked the teachers.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, what the fuck am I even doing here? I don't even know what I want to do in college. I was like, because I wanted to either like write or do stand-up, and I was working like full-time. So I was like, okay, I don't have time to do stand-up, work, and go to school. So I'm going to not go to school. And so then I started working even more, and I was like, damn, I don't really have time to do all of this work and stand-up. So I kind of like put stand-up on the back burner and then just started working more. I worked at the blood bank for like 7 years, and I was like in the actual blood bank selling blood. Like,
wow.
It was basically a warehouse for blood. It was just like you had all the blood, the hospitals would call, and then we'd send it out. And then I was getting tired of that, and I applied to the job where I'm at now, the biotech. I was like, all right, if I get this biotech job, I'll fucking just not do stand-up. And if I don't get it, I'm going to do stand-up like full speed, do like the whole LA thing, like get going. But then I got the job, and then it just became very time-consuming. And then here I am now, wishing I would have stuck with stand-up. But glad I'm kind of where I'm at. But yeah, like, do you ever regret, like, not sticking with it, or, like, just not staying, like, just, like, pushing through and, like, still doing it? Do you ever just get, like, that itch, like, fuck, I gotta get back up there, like, even just for the fun of it?
I wish I had quit my bouncing job in January of 2009 when I should have, because that year was fucking crazy. So I got fired from that bar Thanksgiving weekend of 2009, and it was a crazy year. Like, me and my boss were like screwing the same girls, and he was like trying to get rid of me and all this stuff. And
oh no,
yeah, and like I regret, and at the same time, I felt empowered because of all the shit that had gone on in my life up to that point, and all the trauma I went through after losing my grandmother and all that stuff. Just like, I just felt like, this is my time. I'm gonna fucking do what I want. I'm gonna be the cocky son of a bitch I am. But at the same time, I was like, I should have quit the job, did stand up, or I should have went back to stand up the very next week after getting fired from the job. At least, I should have done one of those two things, and I didn't. I regret that, and I shouldn't have drank. I should have gone up on stage more during that drinking period, but I just didn't. I have those kind of regrets, but at the same time, I've learned a lot more about comedy and the lack of meritocracy in the business than I ever have, so maybe everything worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, because you're doing your thing now with the podcast. Yeah, sometimes I think about it as like, damn, I would have loved to have continued, but, circumstances didn't work out, capitalism, how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like I've learned a lot since. Like I look back and I'm like, yeah, I've learned a lot. Like I feel like I'm in a spot where like if I wanted to go back, I could. I would definitely need like a lot of time to write because I feel like most of the jokes I wrote 15, 16 years ago probably don't stand up nowadays.
Yeah.
But it would be fun to just really try to go up there and like write some new material just for shits and giggles. But then I feel like I don't know if I could do it just for shits and giggles. Like if I really like kind of had fun up there, I'd be like, oh shit, I might want to start quitting my job again. I mean, more so than I regularly want to quit my job.
My act would definitely get me canceled today. The whole fucking thing.
I don't know. I feel like if you pull it off, like there's a lot of talk about like cancel culture. You can't say this, you can't say this, but like if you pull it off, if you say it right, you could really say anything you want. You just have to be able to pull it off. That's the hard part.
And you also have to be a good-looking guy too.
Or you have to be very, very ugly. You can't be mid-looking. You have to either be, you have to be either good-looking or not good-looking at all. You can't be like a 5 to a 7.
Right.
You have to be a 9 or a 10 or a 1 to a 3. There's no ground for that middle space to be like very kind of offensive and like that. You either got to be at the top of the look scale where it's like, okay, you're fine enough to get away with that, or the bottom of the look scale is like, okay, you're too ugly, I don't even give a shit. You got to be somewhere in between. But depending on your delivery and like really what you're trying to say, you could get away with saying most things if it's funny enough.
Right.
Because I remember back in high school, I would say some fucked up shit to people, and they'd be like, oh, but he's a comedian. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, this isn't me doing comedy. I am just kind of being a dick. But if you're funny enough, you can get away with saying some pretty fucked up shit. But yeah, I know a lot of my jokes, they'd be like, yo, nah, leave that shit in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
There was a time and a place for it. It is not nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, Max, thank you so much for finally coming on, man. I'm glad we could catch up.
No, yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast.
Oh,
me and my friend, the one from the standby, we were drinking with our COO, and we were like, hey, you got to give us a company podcast. We'll run everything by HR first. We'll submit a light script, but yeah, you should give us a podcast. He drunkenly agreed, but it's never come to fruition. But yeah, this was my first podcast. You took my podcast virginity. Thank you for being gentle.
I've taken a lot of female actresses' podcast virginity too. A lot of ones that I even had crushes on. So my pleasure.
Oh man, I bet. Oh, that must have been like. Was it good for you like it was good for me?
Yeah. It was. All right, man. Thanks so much for coming on. And yes.
All right, thanks a lot for having me.
And start a podcast, man. I think you'd be good at it.
Oh, for sure. Thanks, man. We got to link up again.
All right, we will.
All right, talk to you later, man.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Max Neal. Ain't he a cool dude? I fucking love that guy. I'm so glad we could catch up today about the old Brainwash days and talk about other shit as well. He's such a good guy. I hope he gets back into comedy, and I hope he starts a podcast because he is just a gem. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.